I'm going to go through two unique types of phrases that come up in the English language, and they're based on what are called gerunds and infinitives. These are somewhat unique types of words, and that they're kind of what I'd call somewhat verby nouns. They really are nouns in the end. That's what they become, and they can function in the way that nouns function. In other words, as subjects and as objects. That's what they can do. But they're somewhat verby in that they can take an object, and they're related to verbs. So they're somewhat unique. And what they do that's so important is they set up phrases. So these create gerund phrases and infinitive phrases, which once you understand how phrases work from prepositional phrases, you'll see how these work. What I find is that students really like especially gerund phrases to use them at the beginning of the sentences, and infinitive phrases towards the end. Now, what a gerund is they can be those ing words. Jumping, running, singing. Too often what people assume is that if it's an ing word, it must be a verb. And it's not necessarily at all. Oftentimes, especially if it comes at the front end of a sentence, it is instead what's called a gerund, which in the end is really a noun. It's a type of noun based on a verb. You can think of these not as actions, but as activities. Activities, the activity of jumping, the activity of running, singing, and others, those are gerund, especially when they're at the front of a sentence. Those are gerunds, okay? And the other one is the infinitive. All action verbs and all linking verbs have an infinitive form. They're called infinitive because they're not finite according to a subject. In fact, the infinitive form cannot have a subject. So there's short little phrases like to jump, to sing, to become, to whatever, to run, or any kind of verb, any kind of action or linking verb. That's the infinitive form. It cannot have a subject. Once it has a subject, it moves out of the infinitive form. So if you have like to jump, and you want to give it a subject like Susie, Susie jumps, that's now within a verb. But to jump is the infinitive form. To jump doesn't have a subject. That's the infinitive. Well, both of those really are nouns in the end, but they are kind of verby nouns. That sounds a little bit odd, but that's what they are, because they take objects. They are nouns that take objects. That's what they do. So they're kind of fun to work with. So you might remember from prepositional phrases, such as this one, the president of the college talks too much. Of the college is a prepositional phrase. That's what it is. It starts with a preposition and it ends with the noun college. Okay? College is the noun. It comes at the end of the preposition. It really is the object of the preposition. That's what it's known as. Now, prepositions are a little bit different. They're not very meaningful words. The meaningful words in English are the nouns and the verbs. Okay? But prepositions, you set up prepositional phrases which function as adjectives and adverbs. But it's important to understand that that preposition sets up a prepositional phrase and it takes an object. That college belongs to that of. So it functions as a single unit. Of the college modifies president. A similar type of logic works with gerunds. Now, gerunds are those ing words that are activities, that function as activities, really function as nouns, or act as nouns, and they can function as either subjects or objects. So most often when I see them in writing, they're usually functioning as a subject, such as this one, cooking pasta takes 5 minutes. The verb here is takes, and it's an action verb. What takes 5 minutes? It's the cooking does. The activity of cooking takes 5 minutes. That is in fact the subject of the sentence. And that's surprising to many people who aren't familiar with gerunds, because it seems like an action. It really is instead an activity. So the question is, what is pasta doing here? Well, it's acting as the object of cooking. Cooking is the subject, but it's a gerund. It is a noun in the end. It is a unique type of noun in that it takes an object. The pasta belongs to cooking. I could have said cooking soup, cooking, bread, cooking anything. That would have been a noun right here, and it would have been the object of that subject. Okay? Cooking would take this object. It's a noun that belongs to really another noun. So the gerund is somewhat unique in that it's really a verby noun. It can function in the way that nouns do, as subjects and as objects, but it has that kind of verby element to it in that it can take an object itself. It still does that. There are instances where these can function as adjectives also, but I can get to that another time. So for now, they're interesting because they set up a phrase, cooking pasta. That's a gerund phrase. And it's functioning really as a whole, as one unit. And that's what takes 5 minutes. That becomes a single unit, a single concept in our minds that in fact is taking 5 minutes. Okay? The next one gets to the infinitive phrase, which is somewhat similar but somewhat different. Infinitives more often come after the verb. More often. They can come before, but that's not very common. In this case, I have Bertha wants to dance the tango. Okay, good for Bertha. Bertha is the subject. It's a noun that functions as a subject. What's the verb? Wants is the verb that functions as the verb. What does she want? The object of the verb want is to dance. She wants to dance. She wants that infinitive. That's what she wants. The activity of dancing in the infinitive form. So this is really your object right here, to dance. And notice it takes an object itself. So the activity of to dance functions, is really really a noun. It's the object here. So it's really a verby noun, the infinitive is, because it's functioning as the object. It's what Bertha wants. But then it takes an object itself. The tango is a noun that belongs to dance. So to dance is somewhat unique. It really is what she wants, and the fact that it's a thing that she wants, but it's kind of verby in that it's going to take an object itself. It's going to do that. So these are somewhat unique types of phrases. The gerund phrase and the infinitive phrase, but students use them a lot, or like to use them when they're aware of them. Most students already use infinitive phrases in the second half of their sentences. I see them quite often. Gerunds, I find students, once they understand them, they like to use them a lot. They're actually a very common stylistic technique that students employ once they're aware of them. Because we do use them already in our speech, in our writing, we just don't use them that often in our writing, especially in our college writing. Once you're aware of it, students tend to use it more often. Okay? So those are two types of phrases you can actually incorporate into your writing when you want to talk about activities, but be aware that they can take objects because they really are verby nouns. They are somewhat unique. Okay? Take care.